What's up, everybody? I hope you guys are having a great, amazing day. I hope you guys have all been doing great and been staying healthy. For today's topic, I wanted to address something that I think it's very relevant, not just in these times, but in general. It's something that a lot of people deal with, and I just felt like I should share a little bit of insight on what I've learned on the topic, which is anxiety. I know with the current times, anxiety levels may be, higher than they've been in the past. People who may not experience anxiety all the time may be experiencing it a lot more often now. So of course I've learned some things about anxiety, and I kind of just wanted to share those with you guys. Hopefully you guys find them helpful. So let's get to it. Let's figure out and talk about anxiety. So anxiety, I think it's something that we all deal with. I mean, we all have anxiety. It's something that it's like an emotion or feeling that we all have. And I think that's one of the most common mistakes that people have or believes is that they should get rid of their anxiety. That anxiety is something that they should not feel, and then that's not the right approach, because anxiety is something that it's a part of us. Just like when we get sad, when we get angry, when we get frustrated, you can't necessarily get rid of those emotions and those feelings. Anxiety is the body's reaction to situations that might be threatening, so situations that might be dangerous. If we didn't have anxiety, then we would all be partaking in more risky and dangerous behavior. So anxiety is good. Anxiety lets us know that we might be in danger, there might be some threatening happening. However, like anything else, it becomes an issue when we're experiencing too much of it on a daily basis in situations where there might not be a threat. And this is when anxiety becomes an issue, and people sometimes think that we should not feel anxious, and then they get more anxious when they feel anxiety. It's like, if I have anxiety and I realize that I'm feeling anxious, then I have more anxiety added onto that because of the feeling, trying to resist it or stuff like that. So yeah, anxiety is something that we all experience. It's a natural thing. So trying to get rid of it, it's not going to be useful, but trying to limit it down to a level where you can, still function in your everyday life is the goal. So I'm going to talk about the cycle of anxiety. I have this little whiteboard with me. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's the little cycle of anxiety. So let's see. It starts with, of course, anxiety. We all can identify when we're feeling anxious. We start getting, heart palpitations. We may start getting sweaty, things like that. But, when we start feeling anxious for different situations, the next step on this cycle is avoidance. Now, there's two types of avoidances that we can do, I guess, and that's physical avoidance and emotional avoidance. So physical avoidance is, you have a speech, or you have an assignment due at school, or you have a presentation at work, or you may have a date with somebody and you physically avoid it. So you bail. You call, you make a reason, an excuse why you shouldn't be there, and you avoid it. Emotional is sometimes, you get too drunk and you're like, I'm just need to get a little tipsy so I can start getting loose and be more social. So you're suppressing your emotions and you're drinking in order to avoid it. And once you're drunk and you don't got to deal with those emotions anymore, then you've kind of emotionally avoided it already. So these are not the best types of avoidance. There are good avoidances. For example, if you're walking in tall grass and you don't want to walk there because there might be a snake. Again, that's avoidance, because it's letting you know that you might be in danger. So that's good avoidance. Anxiety can sometimes do that for us and get us out of trouble. But yeah, so after avoidance, we go down to short-term relief. Bam, can't really see it, but it's right there. So short-term relief, you know, if you miss school, you bail from work, you don't go on that date because you were nervous, whatever it may be, you get a short-term relief. It feels good for a little bit of time. You know, you don't got to deal with it, and it only lasts for a little bit. And then from there, you want to learn long-term anxiety growth. So when you have that short-term avoidance, it doesn't fix the issue. You only feel good for a little while, and then you know, you come back to the anxiety because the situation wasn't resolved. You just avoided it, and now you're more anxious. So now your brain is like, okay, well, we felt good when we avoided it, so now what you're gonna do is you're gonna feel anxious again, you're gonna avoid it, and you're gonna get that short-term relief. And then again, it's gonna come back, you're gonna be more anxious, and you're gonna get into this pattern. So this cycle right here, this right here is how we all become more anxious. We avoid it, we feel good for a little while, for a few days, an hour, and then we realize that the problem wasn't fixed. And instead of fixing it, we feel anxious again, and we avoid it, and we just get stuck in this thing right here. So, how do you break this? Very simple. Watch this. Face your fears. That's how you break this cycle right here. You face your fear. You get exposed to it. You know, maybe you don't have to necessarily jump straight at it, but gradually you can expose yourself to it. So how does facing your fears break this? Because if you're feeling anxious, and instead of avoiding it, you know, if it's not something dangerous, but if it's like a speech at work or something like that, you face it, then you're like, okay, I wasn't really in danger. That anxiety wasn't it wasn't showing at the correct time. So now you kind of build like a tolerance. So by facing your fears, you let yourself know and your brain know that, hey, feeling anxious in the situation is not helpful. I'm not in danger. It's not life-threatening. So now you become more comfortable. So that's one way of fixing or breaking this right here. Face your fear. When you face your fear, you realize that it wasn't that bad. And even if it was that bad, it wasn't as bad as you initially thought. And you gradually start building up, and you become less anxious of the things that you were once really afraid of. So that's one way to break this. Bam. So another way, or other things about anxiety is, anxiety kind of arrives from situations in our brain. You know, we think about certain thought processes that we use can lead to higher anxiety. We call these cognitive distortions, because they happen in the mind and they're distorting. But so what these are, I'm pretty sure we all use some of these. I know I use some of them. Worked really hard to avoid them, not that I'm aware of them. But some of them are catastrophizing. This is a cognitive distortion. Catastrophizing. It's like when something happens and you automatically go to the worst case scenario. There's no other scenario, it's just worst case scenario. You're gonna ask a girl out? Oh, I can't because she's gonna dump me, this and this and that. You know, oh, I have a speech to do. I can't because I'm gonna get up there, I'm gonna faint, I'm gonna throw up, I'm gonna whatever. You know, it's worst case scenario automatically. That's catastrophizing. Another one is minimizing and maximizing. So when you do maximizing, for example, it's like you focus too much on the negative. So like your mistakes, you make a mistake and you maximize it, you zoom in, that's all you focus on. And then you minimize your successes. So if you have a success, you do something good, you minimize it. You don't focus as much on it as you did when you messed up. And that can lead to anxiety. Another one is overgeneralizing. Overgeneralizing is when, you generalize everything, so for example, you can say, I don't want to do a speech because the last time I did a speech, I stuttered too much. So now every time I do a speech, I'm going to stutter. That's not realistic. You can't apply that to every single situation based on one time. That's overgeneralizing. Another one is magical thinking. And this one's a little tricky, but I think we all do it. And this is, for example, if you believe you're like, oh, I'm a good person, therefore nothing bad has to happen to me. Well, that's not necessarily true. You can be a great, amazing person, which I'm sure you are, but that doesn't excuse the fact that life is gonna throw things at us, and negative things are gonna happen. Things that we don't want to happen are gonna happen. So this is another way of thinking that can lead to anxiety. Another one is personalization. So you personalize events. For example, your friend can be in a bad mood and nothing related to you, but because they're in a bad mood, now you think, my friend's in a bad mood, I could do something better for them. That was nothing to do with you, but now you've personalized their issue into your life, and now that may lead to anxiety. So these are all ways of thinking that lead to anxiety. Jumping to conclusion is a big one that we all do. I've done it. I'm sure we've all done it. We make an assumption of something without evidence or without anything. We just jump to conclusion, and then we get, it leads to unwanted feelings or emotions. Another one is that we always do, or that we commonly do, is emotional reasoning. This one I think is big. Emotional reasoning is when something happens to us, and let's say I'm feeling sad, and because I'm feeling sad, now I say I am depressed. That's not necessarily true. Or I'm feeling angry, I have anger issues. Or I feel like I'm a bad friend, so that means I'm a bad person. It's not true. Just because you're feeling this way doesn't mean that now all this is true about you. Just because you may be feeling sad does not mean that you're a depressed person. Or just because you feel bad today doesn't make you a bad person. So yeah, these are all different ways of thinking, thought processes that we participate in. I know I do, and even though I know them now, I still gotta catch myself and be like, okay, I'm doing this, and that's not helpful. It's not gonna make me feel better. It's actually gonna make me feel worse. So these were all some ways. One of the ways that you can dispute this, at least the catastrophizing one, is called decatastrophizing, which I use and I encourage a lot of people to use. It's challenging your thought process. So kind of sitting there and saying, okay, what is causing me to be anxious? What's the reason? What's the situation? And once you figure that out, you can say, okay, well, how likely is this to happen? You know, what are the chances that it's going to happen? And then start thinking of times that you've been in similar situations in the past and it hasn't happened, or it has happened. And then after that, you know, what is worst case scenario? If this happens, what's the worst thing that can happen? And then once you come up with that, then ask yourself, okay, well, what is most likely to happen? Because the worst case scenario that you thought of is probably not the most likely to happen. I know in my situation that has rarely, if ever, been the case. So once you kind of come up with what was more likely to happen, you know, think, how will this affect me in a week, in a month? You know, and a lot of the time, at least for me, I'm like, okay, what's most likely to happen is not gonna matter to me in a week, yet alone a month or a year. So then this makes me feel better, and I'm like, that's really not that bad. You know, I'm just catastrophizing everything, and you know. So those were just some ways, you know, a little anxiety talk that I think can be useful and are ways that I encourage people to use. I know with everything going on, I kind of wanted to address the topic of anxiety because I feel like in these times are challenging times, and you know, a lot of people who may not have been feeling anxious in the past, or at least not as often, are now feeling more anxious. And you know, there's a lot of triggers going on. So identify your triggers, identify what causes you to be anxious. And I know that in these times, anxiety might be a little different because it's kind of considered maybe like crisis anxiety. So in these situations, just identify your triggers, you know, be mindful, be grateful for the things that you do have. Don't focus on all the negative things that the media is saying, that, you know, all the negative things that could happen. You know, don't catastrophize everything in your life. You know, be mindful, go for a walk, you know, do some breathing, write it out, you know, all these things. Don't focus too much on what's making you anxious. You know, kind of step away from it, do other things. You know, so I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you guys have any other topics that you would like for me to share. Like I mentioned, I am getting my master's. I'm being clinical mental health, so counseling. So I have a lot of knowledge about these things, and I keep on learning. So if there's any other topics that you would like for me to know, you know, let me know. Comment, like this video. I hope this was helpful. I tried to keep it short because I know you guys don't want to listen to this for too much, but I hope it was really helpful. At least you take one thing. Thank you guys for coming in, for tuning in. Those of you who have subscribed, thank you very much. Who watch my videos, thank you very much. You haven't subscribed and you've watched my videos only, thank you too. Thank you to everybody. I hope you guys are staying safe. You know, keep on staying safe. Subscribe, like. That's all I gotta say. I hope you guys have a great, amazing day. And like always, always, always remember that the person who conquers their mind will conquer their world.